You do seriously surprise me.
Thank you. I was hoping you'd see that. I mean, I'd give it all I got. Give you 110.
You surprise me to how shit you are.
Welcome. Today, we're going to go over the different sorts of creatures and their levels of strength from Monster Hunter. Now, many just assume that the creatures are just slightly amped up animals. They're bigger than most dinosaurs and large mammals today, so that makes sense inherently. But even though the hunters go and beat them with giant sticks, usually with monster parts on them, these creatures generally show much more impressive capabilities than that would imply. So let's start off with your generic larger monsters, because smaller monsters are basically just slightly oversized animals, like large monkeys, pigs, and outdated velociraptors. Animals like Plesioth, Baroth, Anjanath, Rathalos, and Lagiacrus all have calculations for feats such as shattering rocks that calculate anywhere from small to large building level, with some able to even breach city block level. Calculations for the blue whale put its kinetic energy at only about building level. To move higher up the food chain, let's start talking about larger wyverns / lower level elder dragons. The elder dragon Kirin is notably one of the weaker ones. This creature is able to create storms over whole villages and mountains. Such feats calculate at the lowest end to large town and more consistently in the mountain level ranges. This should scale to many creatures, considering the fact that Kirin is fast, but not exactly powerful, and Rajang was able to deal with it very easily. Even the beast self-exploding didn't really do any damage to the big monkey. Other elders, like Zorah Magdaros, can completely cover mountains with their abilities. Teostra destroys mountains to make its nest. A variant of Kirin, Orochi Kirin, is stated able to freeze all moisture in the air. Should that be true, that feat will warrant island level. Hellblade Glavenus, who is an amped up version of Glavenus who scales basically to Rathian, is also capable of melting mountains with the sheer heat of its tail. Such feat is easily mountain level, if not probably even higher. While concept art shows it beheading a Deviljho, this is likely either retconned or just an inconsistency, considering Deviljho scales to elder dragons, whereas Rathalos Rathian they really don't. They scale to Glavenus. Most elder dragons are touted as living natural disasters and able to poof away entire ecosystems. Kushala and Malzeno, a pretty common elder dragon, disperses a snowstorm to the point of a very clear sky in its opening in Monster Hunter 4U. Now, at the lowest ends, this is also an island level feat. However, it is more consistent for it to be in the country ranges between small and large. He seemingly does the reverse in the opening for 2 as well, creating a giant thunderstorm by simply existing when being pursued by hunters. Now, considering these powers are used in its attacks, and it can withstand creatures that can withstand its attacks hitting it, these powers should just scale to its physicality. This is important because many monsters scale to, if not above, Kushala and Malzeno. That includes Espenas, Malzeno, Magnamalo, Goldorathian, Deviljho, Rajang, and Nergigante. Monster Hunter Rise introduces us to Malzeno, an elder dragon who actually allows us to scale back to the mainline games. This creature shows the ability to beam clash Volcana to a standstill. Volcana shows the ability to beam clash Savage Deviljho to a standstill. This is important because in the past, Geismagorm, the enormous elder dragon and the final boss of Rise and Sunbreak, battled against Malzeno and seems to have lost. Multiple giant craters formed in their battle. One of these craters is seen in the game, and destroying it would get, at the very bare minimum, if he just broke all the rock, city level capability, but if he vaporized it with, say, a blast of dragon element, it would actually be country level, and his physicals obviously would scale to that, since that is the description of him in game. Now, some say that all of the endgame monsters are relative, so that would bump Geismagorm much higher, but Malzeno completely oppressed Geismagorm until he was defeated. Malzeno also off-screens poor Rathalos, poor guy, can't seem to catch a break. Even further up the chain from regular elder dragons, we have the ecosystem destroyers, as I like to call them. These are typically enormous creatures, or ones able to control and destroy entire landscapes. For example, Frontier's Raviante wrecks an island just by gliding along it and eating its food. He doesn't attack the island itself, and yet he destroys it completely, while also destroying Espanaz, who, as we said, scales to Kushala. Dalamarter is a giant capable of crushing mountains and moving continental crusts with its movements, able to shake the planet as well. Both of those feats would at least be country level, if not continental. Interestingly though, it's stated that the ant version Shadow Dalamarter can cover the world in fire, which would easily be a multi-continental feat, and yet known Dalamarter are simply not large enough or have enough bioenergy to form the existence of the Rotten Vale ecosystem and world, where several even larger carcasses have been found grouped together. That means at least 3, if not 9, giant Dalamarter who would have even more energy. This is important because this is the food source of Safi'jiiva. Safi'jiiva is stated to be the strongest elder dragon encountered up to this point, which would obviously exclude the black dragons who scale above him, but we can explain more on that in a bit. Safi'jiiva was also planning to feed on the energy of Zorah Magdaros, an enormous elder dragon who, if he made contact with the new world, would destroy it completely. This explosion has been calculated at the lowest possible end to island level, but much more consistently in the country to multi-continental level ranges, consistent with Dalamarter's feat. Safi'jiiva has already consumed one in the past, and was drawing the next towards it, and its explosion in canon only woke the beast up, so Safi'jiiva at least scales to multi-continental, or the low end of country. Interestingly, Nergigante was also planning to feed on Zorah's explosion, meaning he potentially scales to the giant, at least in his transformation of Ruiner. This may be consistent with him killing off the weakened Sharish Falda. Now, some say that the rock defense was removed, and so that's why Nergigante was able to do anything. This is not true. The book specifically mentions that the rocks provided no defense, and that only Nergigante is capable of hunting such a beast. Nergigante scales far above most of the other elders, able to, with one arm, easily slap away Rajang, pin down most elders like Teostra and Kushala, and easily overpower Safi'jiiva even in a heavily weakened state, though this may just be because of the animation. But if Zeno is the strongest elder dragon, not only would he be stronger than Nergigante, but he would even be stronger than the enormous Lao Shanglung, a gigantic dragon, whose every scale is said to be as tough as a flying wyvern, which, if that includes Betelgeuse, who is roughly on par with Deviljho and Rajang, this would mean that the enormous monster would have, at the absolute lowest ends, country-level scales, if not a high end of moon-level defense. This may be consistent, as Lao Shanglung, literally his entire quest is him running away from Fatalis. And the only reason this is doubted in story is because many people do not believe that the Black Dragon still exists. Speaking of Fatalis, let's move on to the Black Dragons, the strongest creatures in the verse. Now, Safi'jiiva, we've established, is at least multi-continental, possibly even moon level, to become his final form of Safi'jiiva. The Iceborne book states that Safi'jiiva is meant to be a rival of Fatalis, and may be the reason the Black Dragon even woke up from his slumber. Alatreon also found it necessary to keep an eye on Safi'jiiva and prevent another one from existing, and that the two of them would have a turf war for the entire planet. This is specifically said in the Iceborne book. That's no exaggeration, their turf war would literally destroy the planet. But is this consistent? Well, let's talk about Fatalis' own lore. In his poem, it's mentioned that Fatalis rules and can destroy the earth and the sky. That already gives evidence for planet. Further, in Frontier, Crimson Fatalis, who admittedly is stronger, is said to be the doom of Earth in his own fucking theme music, which is incredible. The Iceborne book also says Fatalis can destroy the planet and everything on it. The larger Fatalis clone, basically, Dire Moralis, is likened to the world. He can destroy the seafloor by simply moving. In Frontier, White Fatalis creates a solar eclipse within 2 seconds by moving the entire moon in front of the sun. The kinetic energy for this calculates to planetary at least twice, so that should mean it's pretty consistent. And if the moon was moving as fast as the dragon was, given how fast the dragon returned from the moon, this would actually be a large planet plus level feat. The eclipse is maintained throughout the entire White Fatalis fight, which can be 30 minutes, So even as the creature is weakening, it's at least planet level at the very lowest of end, and the total energy would be at least large planet, if not small star level. Granted, White Vitalis is stronger than Black or Crimson variant, but I don't think his mere movements would be stronger than them. That'd be a little ridiculous. As for the order of the Black Dragons and Iceborne, it should be Allah, then Safi, then Fatalis. As mentioned, Safi was keeping Alatreon away, and Allah felt it would be needed to oppress Safi, and Fatalis is said to be the strongest final challenge and an appropriate final boss battle, even after Safi had been defeated. As a side note, Saifi's big Godzilla Blast is mentioned to be able to destroy any other creature up to this point. So you can at least one-shot multi-continental level creatures easily. However, there's even possibly higher stuff to use. This is a myth in the verse. However, the Iceborne book specifically mentions that the myth is becoming a reality, so I think it's fair to use for black dragons. It's mentioned that dragons created islands, mountains, the ocean, and even the moon itself from a single dragon scale. Creating the moon from essentially nothing would be a dwarf star level feat, if not small star level feat. It's also mentioned that White Fatalis' scale is above every Elder Dragon, so we could stack the same multiplier we did for Lao Shanglong onto White Fatalis, which generates an insane amount of energy. Although perhaps you can even say that applies to the Black Dragon, with that calculating between large star bare minimum and solar system level. Furthermore, he can actually amplify his defense by a factor of 10. So to recap, we have normal monsters at building to city block, low-level elders at mountain to island, other elders at country to continental, ecosystem destroyers at multi-continental to moon, and black dragons at planetary through solar system level. I will cover speed and hacks in a versus video I have planned for the verse at a later time. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time.